come to my home. Thank you for joining me for another live edition of Talk of the Crown, my weekly Royal Reviewer talk show, where it is over to you. It is basically a question and answer session. Not quite royal, says, still can't get over the military horses running through London yesterday. I do believe they were the household cavalry. Something spooked them. I think it was a building work. Something dropped from height and it spooked the horses. Now, you know, when you are working with, and essentially these are companions, you know, to anyone who's sort of, you know, army based, you know, animals, horses in particular, are a companion. So you're working with real life, you know, emotions and feelings, and animals and horses have those emotions and feelings too, and they can get spooked. So although these horses are very highly trained, occasionally something can happen that perhaps annoys that they haven't been trained for, like, you know, a building material dropping from a great height. It spooked them. I think the household cavalry did the best that they possibly could to protect the horses, protect the public, and to get those horses back to medical treatment, to veterinary treatment as soon as possible. The horses, you know, unfortunately did kick off their riders or mounts or steed, whatever you want to call it. And a lot of, what was it, 2 or 3 of them bolted, and they were running through the streets of London until they were until they calmed down and were sort of brought back in. They did get injured. Some of them, I think, two of the horses got sort of really injured. We had those horrific images of a white horse, you know, with blood gushing down its from its chest and legs, which was a pretty harrowing scene. So I think a lot of animal lovers will feel a great sense of, you know, sadness that that happened. But it can happen. Like I say, when you are working with, you know, live animals, anything can happen. Fortunately, they were brought back under control, and they have been having veterinary treatment. I think maybe even an operation as well. I did hear rumblings of. I'm not quite sure whether both of them had operations or whether it was just one. But there has been operations. So we have our fingers crossed, our bejeweled fingers crossed, for a speedy recovery. Sue M says, "Loved the palace posting their jam." Ooh, yes, it was definitely some shade. I'm gonna give a green fan flap for that. So I'm calling this the Jam Wars. It's the unofficial Jam Wars. It's almost like the Battle of Waterloo, or or the Boston Tea Party, or something of that nature. This is, you know, royal wars on an epic jam-based level. My goodness, who would have thought we were talking about jam wars? But no, the royal family have not necessarily engaged in the jam wars. It's just something that Meghan's Rotten Orchard jam has kind of kicked up a fuss with. So, Meghan, as we know, is coming out with this jam. We've seen head nor tail of actual production of the jam. All we've seen is some of her jars that she's possibly handmade, a sample test batch with no label in terms of the ingredients or the nutritional information. The label was peeling. It's probably something that she printed off herself at home and got Archie to stick on with a Pritt stick. I mean, you know, or maybe a bit of blue tack. Maybe she got Lily on the blue tack. Anyway, the jars were just awful. She sent them out in baskets of lemons, of all things. So she is no way near production. However, this then spiked royal supporters, of which there are many more than support Ms. Harkle, who went and bought Highgrove jam. Now, of course, Highgrove jam was originally sort of made by the Prince of Wales, then Prince Charles, now King Charles, for many years, but the interest level sparked. And rather than buying Meghan's rotten jam, royal supporters wanted to buy the King's jam, and not only the King's jam, but also Duchy Originals jam as well, which is kind of, you know, part of an endeavour that he created when he was Duke of Cornwall. Now Prince William is Duke of Cornwall. So with regards to Highgrove, I did do a little bit of fact checking. Highgrove is the King's property for still owned by the Duchy of Cornwall, of which with it are basically his. So if you're buying Highgrove jam, you are supporting the king. If you're buying Duchy original jam, you are supporting William, and to a lesser extent the king as well, I suppose, seeing as he set it all up. And Buckingham Palace got in on the jam wars. They posted a little update on their jam. So just posted a little advert saying, you know, hey, we've got jam for sale. So I'm sure people are going to rush out and now buy Buckingham Palace jam, which of course aids the royal. Any sales from the Buckingham Palace shop go to maintaining the royal collection, which is held in trust by the sovereign on behalf of the nation. So it's almost, if you purchase something from Buckingham Palace, it's almost like giving back to charity. If you buy, you know, Highgrove, it kind of like goes back into maintaining everything. So it's almost like giving to charity. So you can buy that jam and eat it guilt-free. You can have a safe conscience, my loves. Whereas if you buy Meghan's rotten jam, if ever it comes out, I say if ever, then it just goes to line her pockets. And that is the difference. When people are screaming, oh, double standard, double standard. Well, doesn't the king sell jam? Doesn't William sell jam? Well, yes, they do. But the difference is it goes towards, you know, maintaining collections on behalf of the nation, or it kind of goes back into like charity pots. It doesn't necessarily go towards you know, their own financial gain. And with regards to the Duchy of Cornwall, that is government sanctioned. In fact, the Duke of Cornwall, now Prince William, is expected by law to run the Duchy of Cornwall effectively to make a profit, to provide an income to the heir, for the heir to the throne. This is legally sanctioned. This is it's a duty. It's expected of William. So he is sanctioned by law almost to run the Duchy of Cornwall. And of course, every Duke of Cornwall wants to make their mark, wants to make it profitable. And then just go to like, don't think Prince William is spending all the profits on buying flash cars and swank. No, no, no. Prince William has to his official engagements. Remember, he supports himself and his family. So when George, Charlotte, and Louis eventually come to do royal duties, William will be funding their charitable endeavours and his own and Catherine's from the Duchy of Cornwall, which is very, very different to Harry and Meghan. So beware of those people that call double standards. Opal says, you've become so biased over the years. How do you sleep at night? And this is a point in case, going back to Angela Levin. She needs to be prepared for difficult questions. Opal, I can answer you in a heartbeat. I have not become Harry and Meghan. They are the ones that have changed. Their words, actions, and deeds influence how people think and feel about them. So in the beginning, when they first came out, I had no problem with Meghan. I had no problem, you know, that she was of biracial descent. I've chronicled all of this on my channel since 2015. You know, all royal life. Meghan was universally accepted by British people. There were some people who spoke out, but the majority of people supported Meghan. Where it all went sour was their own actions and deeds. I mean, we had a royal photographer. Now, we're not talking a journalist, we're talking just a photographer who said that Harry's demeanour and attitude completely changed when he started dating Meghan. Gone was the happy-go-lucky chappy. Then they started doing something like, you know, ignoring an invite to Balmoral to spend time with the Queen, and instead saying Archie was too young, and then going off, uh, on Elton John's private jet to wherever his home is. You know, it all started to go sour. Then, obviously, when they left, they did it in a way that I thought was very rude and abrupt and abrasive. Then came Oprah whilst Prince Philip was passing away. Then came Spare. Now, don't forget, Spare was supposed to be released whilst Queen Elizabeth was still alive. So, and he knew that Queen Elizabeth wasn't in particular good health during the last moments of her life, completely unforgivable. So if my opinion has changed about Harry and Meghan, it certainly isn't because I have become biased, it's because of their own actions, words, and deeds. See, you have to be able to back up what you say. Not Quite Royal says exactly. They did all this while Queen Elizabeth was still alive. It was so cruel. Harry wanted Spare to come out whilst Queen Elizabeth was still alive. Can you imagine bombarding, harassing, the amount of stress causing your own grandmother in her mid-90s? I mean, it just doesn't bear thinking about. What a cruel, wicked man Harry has become. And then, worst thing was, he postponed the book after she passed away, just so he could get some extra chapters out of that. I mean, it was just absolutely disgusting. It really was. Tooth Fairy says this whole jam thing is to deflect from the surrogacy the Harkles use. Right, let's get on to the surrogacy. So, as we know, I mean, I have no, you know, I'm fine with surrogacy. So surrogacy can help a lot of families have children who couldn't otherwise have children. So the act of surrogacy, I am not going to criticize. Um, what I will say is, why hide it if you have gone through surrogacy? There's no need to hide it. It's not something that you should feel ashamed of. It's not something that you should shy away from. In fact, if you were going through that, if you had fertility issues, it could actually you could actually highlight an issue and you know make it more publicly acceptable. You could actually speak out and help people, a little bit like how the King and Catherine have come out and spoke about their health issues with their cancer diagnosis. But in UK law, we have to be in the line of succession, of course, it mentions of body. Now, traditionally, before surrogacy was ever a thing, of body meant birthed. You have to have been birthed by the mother. And I'm not going to get into all the things about who can be mothers these days. We know many people can be mothers these days, but traditionally, in hundreds of years ago, when the rules were made, born of body. So a potential reason for hiding a surrogacy could have been because they wanted any children to be in the line of succession, and there to be no doubt about that. But I think in the modern context, what could happen is that law could be redefined, and that would not necessarily be up to King Charles. I don't think he could necessarily just issue letters patent. I think it could actually be sparked by the government of the day. So currently, the Conservative Party, we have elections coming up in September. Well, we think September. Sometime this year, we've got elections coming up. And whatever government is in power could actually turn around and say, we are going to redefine of body to bring it up to modern sensibilities and standards, and actually say that as long as an embryo is created from the father's sperm and the mother's egg, then that is of their body. And they could actually do away with the birthing part, but that is potentially for the future. As it currently stands, if Harry and Meghan were found to have used a surrogate, then Archie and Lilibet would be excluded from the line of succession. And I think that could potentially be the reason why, if there has been a surrogacy, then it could have been hidden. Now, let's talk moon bumps for a moment. I avoided the sordid topic of moon bumps for a very, very long time, and I'm perfectly happy to talk about it now. Because it is a possibility. I've seen the videos, just like everyone else, of Meghan's stomach while she was pregnant with Archie, moving from side to side. I've seen her squatting in high heels. I've seen the bump crumple up. I've seen when she sort of stood up, it kind of popped and moved. I mean, there was all kinds of unnatural movements, shall we say, regarding the stomach area that didn't typically sit with, a heavily pregnant woman. We're not even talking the early stages of pregnancy. We're talking the later stages of pregnancy. So I can see why there is a call to find out, whether or not surrogacy was used. And I think Lady C is pushing for the royal family to say one way or the other whether or not a surrogate was used. And therefore, if a surrogate was used, to uphold the rules and the laws that are in place to remove Archie and Lilibet from the line of succession. But like I said, be warned, because it could also prompt the government of the day, even if the palace didn't want to actually redefine and update that law to include an embryo of the father's sperm and the mother's egg. If, of course, it was a surrogacy and it was someone else's egg, then that would completely exclude them from the line of succession. CCC says two illegitimate Invisi kids illegally in line to the succession, Meg birth to kids, so not entitled to be there. I think this is what we want to clear up. What we want to clear up is, once and for all, are they illegitimate in terms of being in the line of succession? The one thing I don't want to do is to say that children born of surrogates are illegitimate children. That would be a horrible thing to say, to a child born of surrogacy. But what we are talking about here, and I will be very specific with this, we are talking about the rules set out, the legal rules and stipulations set out regarding the line of succession. It is very specific. It is very archaic. It is very old-fashioned. It's not modern. It's not up to date. And it does say very specifically, born of body. And the traditional born of body is birthed by the mother. So, I don't want to upset anyone who has used a surrogate or has been born of surrogacy. I am just talking about it very factually, matter of factly, for this particular situation. Ingrid says, I think the point is not the surrogacy, but as you say, can be changed by the government. The issue is her lying. They both lying to the public, like the whole world is a bunch of idiots. Yes, I have got no issue with surrogacy whatsoever. Lots of people in myself's situation, two men, two women, whatever, need to go through some kind of process to have a child. So I'm not against surrogacy whatsoever. In fact, like I say, I think it can create really wonderful, amazing families. However, the issue, you're quite right, the issue would be in the lying about it, the deception, the deceit. Whereas otherwise, Miss Harkle could have used it as a platform to celebrate surrogacy as a wonderful, beautiful thing. And the lying kind of got in the way, if you like, if indeed that is true. Beverly says, at the moment, the surrogate mother in a dispute over a child has the strongest legal claim, no matter whose egg is used. I mean, different rules and different regulations apply in different countries, but certainly if a surrogate was used, the current UK law, and I can talk about what I know from the UK side. By the way, surrogacy in the UK is altruistic. Only expenses can be claimed and they have to be justified. It has to actually go through a court at the end. So in the UK, there isn't a case where a surrogate can demand $30,000, $100,000, whatever it might be, that other countries do. In the UK, it has to be reasonable expenses and usually falls somewhere between £13,000 and £20,000. So it's altruistic in approach, but the current UK law, I think they are looking at changing it, is that when a child is born, on the birth certificate, it has to be the surrogate mother's name and if they are married, it has to be their partner. So if a surrogate was used, then it should be the surrogate mother's name down and not even Prince Harry. It would be someone else. Then what you do is you apply to the courts for a parental order, and then months later, up to 6 months later, the birth certificate is changed and the parental order is made so that Harry and Meghan's name, for example, would then go back on the birth certificate. But initially, under current laws, it would be the surrogate and her partner if she had one. So there we go. Jolene says, altruistic or no pregnancy is a huge ordeal to the body before, during, and after, not to mention potential loss of wages. Yes, in the UK, I do believe the surrogate has to plan in advance for potential loss of earnings, and it all goes down onto an agreement if you are with a surrogacy agency. And basically, you have to then keep receipts and justify those costs and expenses. However, in the UK, we have very, very good workers' rights. So even if someone is pregnant as a surrogate, they would have maternity leave for that child. So in the UK, I think it is a little bit different to other countries. We have a lot more rights and protections, and workers' rights are very, very big in the UK. So yes. Timber Dan says it's not about skin color or race, I would hope anyway. It's about the content of character. Exactly. People were willing in the UK to give Meghan a chance. Many people thought that it was a breath of fresh air, and it was a good and positive thing to have, something different brought to the table. However, like I say, their own actions and deeds and characters came through, and that is what soured it. Not anyone else, not anyone else's fault. They soured it for themselves. Timberdan says, it's quite sad because Harry and Meghan could have been a huge contribution to the royal family, but they decided otherwise. And the Commonwealth too. They, in terms of work, they were doing really good. But it was all the personal things behind the scenes, the bullying allegations that were supposed to be going on, and I do believe that there could be more due to come out surrounding the bullying. One of Meghan's former staff members has finally kind of started to talk about it. Samantha Cohen came out, whereas previously she has remained completely tight-lipped. She's began talking about it. So she didn't reveal terribly too much in an interview. However, the lips are becoming unsealed, shall we say. So I expect there to be a little bit more coming out about that. And she would know because of first-hand experience. What she did actually say was that they had hired someone to replace Samantha Cohen. They took that person to Africa when they were in Africa, and the person left mid-tour. They actually said, we don't want the job. And, what could possibly have driven them to that? I think, the way that Harry and Meghan speak to people, interact with their staff, it must have put them off. And I think that just about says it all, that member of that new member of staff didn't even want to try even a trial period with Harry and Meghan. They must have seen something completely abhorrent to just literally walk out of the job. Now, we know that there are some new communications guys being hired by Harry and Meghan, one UK based, one US based, and I don't suspect that they will last very, very long. They've got a big job ahead of them to communicate for Harry and Meghan, because as we know, Harry and Meghan only like to communicate on their own terms, and that's not how communication works. Communication is give and take. Communication is a conversation, whether it be verbal, written, email, smoke signals, whatever it might be. You have to have a rapport, and that is what good PR and communication is in the industry. You have to have a good rapport. And when Harry and Meghan dismiss half of the British press off the bat, we're not speaking to those nasty tabloids just because those nasty tabloids told the truth about us that we don't want to hear. You know, that's not good, effective communication. They ignore the advice of any of their advisors anyway. Lauren says, I think the security issue is going to carry on for quite some time, which, like I've said before, I'm in two minds about. Oh, you mean Harry's? I think that is dead in the water. Harry is not getting official entitled royal protection when he's in the UK. I think the arrangement will hold that is currently in place, which is basically that Harry must inform the police or the authorities that he is coming. They will assess on a case by case basis whether or not he needs escorting from the airport or wherever he's going, and it will be done that way. Now that still gives Harry a level of protection that most people think he probably shouldn't even have that. However, that is the working arrangement in place currently, and I think that that will probably stand. I will run through what I'm wearing today. So we have the Tech Crescent tiara, one of my favourites. I do love it. It hasn't been worn in recent years with members of the royal family, and I was hoping that it might make, well, I hope it might make an appearance at some point. We do know that the royal family has many jewels that have kind of disappeared over centuries, and they haven't made a reappearance. Now, we have seen some jewels making a reappearance on Queen Camilla. Of course, we saw Catherine wearing the Strathmore Rose tiara, which was really nice to see come out of the vault. So I'm holding out hope that this tiara might come out. Now, this is a really good replica of that tiara. I'm wearing my grandmother's long strand of pearls, my grandmother's sort of simulated opal, and I'm wearing a kind of replica collet necklace, diamond collet necklace, supposed to be reminiscent of the coronation necklace. And of course, I have the Australian wattle brooch, which has kind of hints of yellow. So I thought I'd match the yellow with the yellow of the shirt. And then, of course, my favourite ring, my favourite royal replica ring, the aquamarine ring that was formerly owned by Princess Diana. We're not going to mention whose trotter it resides on currently. Thank you for watching, and of course, I will see you next time. So from me, mwah, to you all, and goodbye.